This is a follow-up video on my latest video. The video was about silly claims from flat earthers regarding military things, weapon system, navigation systems, targeting systems. I will link that video in the description. And one of the videos I was looking at was one from Marks Sargent, who had a guest on his silly show, and the guest claims to be a weapons instructor on an amphibious assault ship, Iwo Jima. And I proved without any doubt that he didn't know what he was talking about. Today I will look a bit more on that video and these flat earthers' silly claims regarding military things. Let's start.
Specifically, one of the things that is a part of our system is our computer, and how we actually, solve the fire control problem, how we, go in and actually put a missile on a target. Mm-hmm. And that computer was basically retrofitted from a Norwegian tank.
So he claims that the computer was from a Norwegian tank. So let's have a look at what type of tanks they have had in Norway. After the Second World War, they was using the American M24 Chaffee and some Panzer III that the Germans left after the war. In 63, they upgraded to the American M48 Patton, and in 69 they bought the German Leopard 1, and in 2002 the Leopard 1 was replaced with Leopard 2, and last year 2023 they ordered 54 of the latest version of Leopard 2, the A7 version. The Sea Sparrow system that he claims to be a weapon instructor on was developed during the 60s and took in service in US 1976. So during that time, during the development time, the Norwegians used the American tank, and after 1969 German tanks. So what tank is he talking about?
And it was built specifically for that tank, and it was just repurposed later on for obviously this system. But if you look at it, any tank is actually built upon a planar model. It's built on an X and a Y coordinate system for like artillery shots.
As I said yesterday, the tank is not artillery. Artillery shoots ballistic, but a funny thing with this is that Sea Sparrow in later version also are capable of shooting ballistic.
Yeah. And if you look at it, I mean, when that gets repurposed to a missile system, and we have much further range than obviously a tank does on being able to effectively put a missile on a target,
yeah,
you would think that we would have to account for the curvature of the world, because it's got to be able to maintain a proper course to get to the target.
Okay.
And that's just not something you observe.
And he don't mention the big difference. A tank is shooting a shell, it's going straight forward, you can't steer it. The Sea Sparrow is a missile that have a navigation system. It can find its way. You can point it to a target, or you can get it steering itself to the target. It's a big difference between those and a tank.
Well, this is really interesting to me. I'm kind of a fan of military technology anyway. So a Norwegian tank, they use the software, the algorithms, the firing algorithms, which, and the Norwegian tank was, everything was based off a plane, not shooting on a curved surface, but a plane. And then they retrofitted it for the United States Navy missile system, and that system didn't change anything. All they did was they extended the range on it so that you could fire missiles, much longer than an artillery shell. But the point was, it's still firing with a plane, dealing with a flat model for the software. Correct?
And it's obvious that Marks Sargent don't understand the difference between a tank and a missile. Regardless if you live on a globe or a flat earth, that's not the same thing. You don't fire a tank the same way as a missile. You don't aim at the same way.
And it does not account for what I think you mentioned earlier. It does not, and please feel free to expand on this. It does not take into account the Coriolus effect, otherwise known as the Earth spinning. Is that also true?
That is correct.
None of those two fools, Mark and his guest, don't understand the purpose of this type of weapon systems on the ship that he was supposed to serve at. This is a close protection. It's not an offensive weapon, it's defensive. It's to take care of threats, fast moving flying threats like airplanes and missiles. It's not aim and shoot like on a tank. It's following the target active. Because an airplane is not going in a straight line. It's going fast and it can move, it can turn and so on. The same goes for missiles. So Coriolus Effect and so on have no relevance in this case.
Can you give us anything on that?
Yeah, basically, the main thing whenever they repurposed that Norwegian tank's computer, the only major thing they really changed, none of the hardware changed for it.
Why would they change the hardware? A computer is a computer.
The only thing they changed around is the software, and that was just to integrate for a missile system being used instead, because obviously we got more ammunition readily available, like we have 8 missiles instead of 1 barrel.
The normal version of Leopard 2 tanks have 42 rounds and the crew can fire 4 to 8 per minute depending on how well trained they are. The Sea Sparrow can fire several missiles at the same time, but they must be on the same target.
Yeah. We have different peripheral pieces of equipment other than just onboard equipment with a tank. So the software was changed to run through the same hardware. And I know some people know what I'm talking about with that. But basically, when you can't change hardware, your software is limited. And that's with any computer, Yeah. And so the only thing they could really implement with that, like you said, is a further range because of the missile itself.
I'm quite sure that all of you can hear that you are listening to two persons that are talking about things they don't know anything about and they don't understand. So, it's typical flat earth nonsense.
Yeah.
Wait, can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
The targeting system on the Norwegian tank, that was for like a tow missile system or a Hellfire, or what kind of, for a missile, right? Not a projectile, not like a shell.
For the Norwegian tank?
Yeah, was it for a shell or for a missile system that was mounted on the tank?
It was for a shell.
Okay. No, because I think that's important because a missile has, a rocket on the end of it, right? So it's a different thrust vector and all that. I guess, I don't know if that's the right term, but a shell, you're accounting for it dropping, right?
Yep. Yeah. And you account for missiles dropping too, but
there we had another voice on his on Mark's podcast, and I think he made some quite correct replies or questions, and the reply from the expert is so stupid. So the rockets or missiles are losing height? Have they turned off their engine? Oh dear.
Basically, you have a solid propellant in a missile that burns out to a max distance, you know. But once it's in the air, it has onboard guidance to adjust its wings to basically inertial nav to the target.
There you have it. The missile have a guidance system on the tank you don't have on the shells.
Yeah.
And yeah, basically the Norwegian Tank, that computer that was repurposed, its whole purpose was just to fire shells, you know, a standard gunpowder shell, sabot, and that was it. And basically that was, we all know and can look back to artillery and cross-reference this. Artillery is always done from a planar module. It's never taken into effect with Coriolus Effect and, you know, curvature of the world. Even though you hear those buzzwords all the time, you can look back on many articles from professionals that's done 20 years in the Army and worked with howitzers and all that stuff. They've never once taken the Coriolus Effect into consideration.
And that's a lie. Let's look at the document pre-NASA. This is from 1941. If we read the subject that I have marked here, ranged ballistic correction due to the curvature and rotation of the Earth, method of handling. If we read this part, at 19,800 yards the curvature would be 4.95 minutes, which gives a correction of 86 yards. I'm in board for a museum in Sweden. It's coastal artillery, Cold War. We have 3 facilities. On one we have 3 of those cannons. It's 15.2 centimeters artillery cannons, and on another we have 3 of those 7.5 centimeters cannons, and we have all documentation preserved. And in the documentation about the cannons, how to use them and so on, we calculate with Coriolis.
For the missile, it's line of sight targeting. That's basically, like I said earlier, we track the target with a illuminator, and it's basically just another piece of gear that's tied into ours. And once we lock up on the target, we're line of sight pointing straight at it, because it's a 2-degree pencil beam. It has to be pointing straight at it, because if it's not going to see it. It's not a search radar, it's a fire control radar. And you know, if you're supposedly looking at something, you know, 50 nautical miles away around a huge curve, it's just you can't punch through the ocean with RF.
Oh, one more stupid claim. He was supposed to work on a system that are close combat, close defense. This type of ship don't work alone. They are in a task group, and if they are close to being attacked, they have AWACS and other planes in the sky to see further. They don't look at ship at 50 nautical miles, not from his system. And the curvature of the Earth, they are looking after airplanes.
We have this piece of equipment, and I'm sure quite a few people are familiar with this, but we use gyros, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And these gyros are powered on our ship, and basically they stay stationary once they're spooled up, and we have to power them up before we get underway.
Yeah.
And this information from this gyro is fed into all of our radar systems and all of our weapon systems, and all they account for is the pitch and roll of our ship. So we can account and send that information to, you know, compensate. Like if our ship takes a huge roll, it compensates our weapon system to aim higher, if need be. And if you look at the coordinate system for that, there's no curvature in that at all. It's just a plain model.
Why would they have to take the curvature into account? And do he know how a gyro works?
That's great. So yeah, so basically what he's saying there, folks, in case you've missed anything yet, is that there are no weapon systems currently in the U.S. Navy that are using curvature, or the Coriolus effect. It is something we've suspected for a little while now, but nobody's actually said it,
And why have nobody said it? Because it's not true. Everything regarding navigation and long-range weapon systems is calculating with the globe, with the curvature. That's reality. What you're presenting is lies and fantasies. Okay, that was all for this time. I will be back soon. Hope you liked the video. See you soon. Bye.